Hey everybody, Adam here with Hometown Acres. Welcome back. So the plans for the pond fix have changed. And you guys are gonna think that I have absolutely lost my mind, I'm off my rocker, but we are gonna dig a second pond. As they say, fight fire with fire, right? You got one leaky pond, why not dig a second one? So this whole idea started because Doug brought up a very good point that a lot of other YouTubers out there with leaking ponds right now are drilling wells to top off their pond in the dry summer months that don't have a reliable source of water. In our pond, we have a French drain, we have a small spring going into it, but in the summer months that spring pretty much all but dries up. And so we don't have a reliable water source year round. We do, I would say, 6 to 9 months out of the year, depending on what kind of weather we get during that year. But where we lose the most water is obviously in the summertime when we go without rain for weeks and months on end. And so I knew that we had this area behind me that is probably anywhere between 50 and 75 feet lower in elevation than the pond. And what that means is that there's a chance that it is closer to the water table than the bottom of our pond is, where I think that most of the water from the pond is leaking down into the water table. So I thought, you know what, just to see, right? Before we do all this work on the pond, let's just check and see if we can hit groundwater down here, because if we can, then we can save ourselves $10,000 from drilling a well. We could just dig a small little retention pond down here and pump the water from down here up there. But let me show you what I found, because that's even more important. So as you can see, the pond goes uphill here, the firewood road is there, and then we go up the pond dam. So again, where we are standing is probably 50 to 75 feet lower in elevation. And I dug 3 test holes down in this area here. And within 24 hours, this one here is about half full with water, and the other 2 are completely full of water. So that one is completely full. And that's, you know, probably a good 5 or 6 foot deep hole there. And this one over here is probably a good 8 feet deep, and it is full of water. But more importantly than the fact that these test holes are producing water that we can then pump into the pond, I found the best clay I have seen so far. And that is this stuff right here. Not a rock in it. Perfect, perfect, perfect clay. And I know for a fact that this clay will hold water because I am done taking chances. I did the bucket test, which is where you put about 6 to 8 inches of whatever material you're planning on using to seal the pond. And then you actually drill a bunch of holes in the bottom of the bucket and then fill it with water, mark your water level. And 2 days ago when I did this, I filled it up to the 7-inch mark with water. And in 2 days, with a lid on it, so you're not worrying about evaporation ruining your test results, we have not lost a centimeter of water in here in 2 days with holes in the bottom of the bucket. All right, so not only is the change in water level important, but also is so far, or how far down is the water penetrating into the soil down there. So I'm gonna empty the water out and dig my hand in there and see how far I can stick my fingers down into the clay before I hit dry clay. And if you look inside the bucket here, I know the water is coming in on top of it, but right there, I'm only down 1 inch or 2 is all the farther that water has penetrated down in there. So if we get a good 6 inches of this sticky blue clay down in the bottom there, I think that should fix our problem. And I mean, this stuff here looks like the stuff that gets delivered to a high school pottery class. And who knew that it was right under our nose this whole time? So I think this is going to solve both of our problems. We're gonna dig, it's not gonna be a very big pond. It's probably gonna be maybe the size of 3 or 4 swimming pools just in this little area right here. And then we will underground trench a water line up to the pond. And this will serve as our $10,000 or $15,000 well. So anyways, guys, that is the plan. I'm gonna go ahead and start stripping topsoil today with my machine. And then I do believe Ralph in the next day or 2 is gonna be bringing in his Hyundai 145 excavator, which is at least 2.5 times the size of mine. Once we start digging into clay, I'll be using his machine to do that. He's gonna be bringing in dump trucks as well as his bulldozer, and I'm gonna start stacking up clay with his machine, loading the trucks, and he's gonna be inside the pond spreading it all out. So Ralph just got here with his Hyundai 145 excavator, and before we get started digging, I want to get these little test holes pumped out here. This has been something I've been dealing with, is the test holes that I originally dug down here have been filling so fast with water, I'm having to pump them out twice a day. So even though we're going to be stealing clay from down here to line the inside of the pond up there, I don't think I'm ever going to have to worry about this pond down here not filling. And even if it does leak, you know, let's say we dig all the good clay out of here and get down to bedrock, I think that's just going to allow more water into the pond. I think we have to worry about water coming into the pond faster than it's leaving. And when we go to dig this, we're gonna have to dig pretty quick, because if we take 2-3 days to get this all dug out, I think it's gonna fill with water and we're gonna be screwed. We're gonna have to pump it down with a big trash pump in order to keep digging. So I wanna try to get all of the clay out of here in one day. So while Ralph's spreading the first little bit of clay that we got hauled into the bottom of the pond, I thought I would get ahead of some questions I know we're going to get. The first is, why isn't Ralph filling the trucks all the way to the top? And the reason is because he's using on-road dump trucks for off-road purposes. Even though our field and the bottom of the pond are pretty firm right now in the middle of summer, there's still the chance that if you load a 20-ton truck full, you could still get it stuck, especially coming into the bottom of the pond like we are. And the second you get a fully loaded dump truck stuck, the rest of your day is going to be shot trying to get it unstuck. And he'd rather just load half loads, make more trips, than deal with that headache. Another question I think people might be asking themselves right now is, Adam, I thought you were after blue clay. That looks awfully brown and orange to me. And you would be right. There's still a lot of blue clay mixed in here, but we didn't have as much as we thought down there. But you can tell this is still a really high quality clay by the way that it is rolling and cascading off of the dozer blade. And here you can see that even though overwhelmingly it looks like brown orange clay, there are still pretty large chunks of the blue clay mixed in. And this stuff looks awesome. And honestly, even the brown orange clay is still really good looking stuff. I know it's going to hold water because you can tell just by looking at it, he's having trouble getting that off of his blade of his dozer. And I'll come over here and grab a handful of this stuff as well, just to show you how well this stuff packs together too. All right, guys, so it is the next morning. This is how much we got done in the first day. I was out here until after dark last night getting what was put in here tracked in with the tractor tires. I do have a roller coming today, but I didn't want it to be here and just sitting idle with nothing to do, so it's going to be coming today. But I did want to get some compaction on this before they're calling for a chance of rain today, so came out here last night and got this rolled in. I probably hit it 2-3 times everywhere, went a couple different directions, got it all rolled in nice and tight. I strongly believe that if we had brought in this material the first time around, I think the pond probably would have held water. I mean, if you look down at this stuff, this is straight Play-Doh. And I know not all of it is that blue clay. There's a lot of the orange and brown clay mixed in here as well, but this is significantly better looking stuff. And there's a lot less rock in it. There's still some rock here and there, but I mean, not anywhere near as much. If you just come look over at the sidewalls here, compared to what's here now, and again, this stuff has all been rained on for a year, so it's going to look worse than it did when it was first put in. But I bet you this stuff in a year is not going to look like that. But now I want to go down to the new pond and see how much it filled up with water. By the way, I did take the drone and use that as a transit to see the change in elevation from the top of the old pond to the top of the new pond. And it is about 46 feet of elevation change, just to give you an idea of why we're into the water table with this pond, but not with the old pond. Well, not as much as I thought, but again, we haven't had rain in probably 4 or 5 days. So the fact that we have any water in here at all is a good sign. And you can see even here, there's standing water. And nice little spot back there, standing water. And we did dig a test hole here. This was probably a good 7 or 8 feet deep, and this hole is probably half full. So definitely water coming in here. I think if we get rain, this thing will fill up really quickly, getting all those springs fired back up again. We've got a nice big pile of topsoil sitting right there. I'm not going to make this mistake that I did on the first pond, which was sell all of the topsoil before the project was done. If we have any left over to sell at the end of the project, so be it. So yeah, that topsoil is going to be here to stay until we get this all dressed back up and looking good again. You can probably tell by looking down at it, we are starting to get into the shale. The clay is not as deep as it was in some of the test holes that we dug, at least not everywhere. Some places it is, some places it isn't. But I'm not really too terribly concerned with depth on this pond. The purpose of this pond is two things: provide clay to seal the upper pond, and also provide a water source to fill the upper pond. Other than that, I really don't care about this pond at all. If this pond is only 3 feet deep, which in some areas that's all the thicker the clay is, like if you come over here and look at this sidewall, you can see we've got about a foot of topsoil and then about 2 or 3 feet of really good looking clay. This is what you want to see when you're looking at clay, is that smearing effect you get on the wall. But then as I'm digging down, the second I start hearing grinding and crunching, I know I'm hitting rock, and that's where I stop. But if that's all the deeper this pond is, again, I really don't care. If it's, you know, a 1/4 acre or a 1/2 acre of 3 foot deep water, I don't care. We're gonna be putting a pump in it and running that water up into the bigger pond. That being said, this pond is turning out to be bigger than I anticipated. At the beginning of the video, I said it was gonna be about 4 times the size of your average swimming pool, and we are gonna be quite a bit bigger than that, and that's mainly due to the clay layer not being as thick as we thought it was in some of the test holes. So instead of being able to dig down to get more clay, we're having to dig out, which is making the surface area bigger. So let me know in the comments below, guys, if you think I'm crazy for digging a second pond before our first pond is fixed and full. But I think the plan makes sense. I think it has merit. Steal the clay from here and use that to seal the upper pond, as well as provide a water source to fill the pond. And it's going to save us a ton of money in having to drill a well to feed the pond. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, give me a big thumbs up, click that subscribe button, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.